Our legs just dropped in Wyoming. We're not exactly sure why they dropped. There's your problem, lady. We'll have to bleep that. We've had a lot of things break in our RV. A lot.
Hi everybody, we've been living full-time in our RV for 6 months. We've owned it for a year, we've traveled 9,000 miles in it, and here's everything that broke in the first year. When we first got the RV, we did like the whole inspection thing, right, with the repair guy. It looked pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, everything looked really good, everything seemed to work, everything was working fine. However...
I was gonna say, so there were no problems right out of the gate, right?
No, actually our first night I was checking, as I do because I'm curious, where everything was in the rig. And I noticed after I went and looked at where the freshwater filter was, because this came with one, that there was a puddle of water under the bed.
Under the bed!
One of the fittings just was not put down all the way. Luckily, I was able to just bypass it really quickly and we were perfectly fine. But yeah, that was the very first thing that went wrong.
This is why I say it's always good to be handy when you're buying an RV, because if we hadn't seen that, we could have ended up with a flood under the bed, the circuit breakers under there. Like, it could have been a huge disaster, but Justin fixed it in like 10, 15 minutes.
Yep. During our next trip, we went to go use our TVs. This has a HDMI splitter that's supposed to go to all the different TVs. And 2 of them weren't showing anything off of the splitter.
Yeah, that was real spicy.
Yep. Cue me again, looking through every place, trying to figure out where these splices are. And apparently when they put it together, they had linked 2 of the TVs together instead of putting them to the HDMI. And luckily, me with my electronics degree, I was able to just really quickly figure out which was supposed to go to which. Probably took me about half an hour of searching for that one.
Yeah, wasn't there something online you had to find, like a manual? Didn't they have schematics or something on the website?
They do, actually. So we have a Thor. Thor is actually really good about putting all of their different schematics and their different kind of views and outlines of the RV. Unfortunately, this particular one did not include the HDMI cables.
Oh.
So it was unfortunately me looking through different compartments trying to find where those were put together.
So you had to freestyle a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, the propane gauge. So the first real test trip we took out after the overnight at the RV dealership was a trip to Corpus Christi, which is, what was that, like 6-hour drive?
It was about a 7-hour drive.
7-hour drive. And we stayed there for 4 days. And we had a freak cold snap there.
Yep.
So we didn't have our electric space heaters then. So we were using the RV furnace and propane to heat the rig.
Yep. And I should have known something was wrong because I was looking at the gauge and I'm just like, we're not using a lot of propane.
I remember we were like, this thing is sipping propane. This is sipping propane.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then I'm out, I think the last night, I'm outside cooking dinner.
Yeah, you were grilling.
I was grilling, so I had it hooked into the propane gauge. It just stopped.
Yep.
Just kind of stopped. And I looked down and the gauge still said full, but grill certainly said it wasn't.
And it was above freezing by that time. The cold snap, I mean, thankfully, it was a little chilly. We all had to bundle together.
Yep.
But then we were like, oh no, the gauge is broken. We tried to call the dealership.
Yeah, but they were the typical busy dealership, didn't really hear back. And so cue the research again. And I found that the gauge had simply flipped itself. It's a magnetic coupling gauge, for those that know, at the float level in there. So just waggled some stiff neodymium magnets at the tank, flipped the gauge back around, and it took me a few minutes to figure out, but yeah, it wasn't too bad.
He was literally fixing it with a magnet, and then it worked. This is probably the first really big thing that happened, and this happened once we were full-time on the road. We've been on the road a few weeks at that point, just a couple weeks. Yep. Our whole stabilizer control panel saga.
We have 2 stabilizers at the back that just help prevent a lot of the rocking when you're parked. And I had found that they weren't going down quite right. And then in Kodi, they just refused to come back down. I was able to eventually get them down through the manual means and stuff like that, but it was actually really annoying. And I actually, again, thankfully, I have my electronic knowledge. I was able to trace it down to the controller, and when I opened it up, water just gushed out of the controller.
Oh geez, that's right. There was like a hole or something where they hadn't sealed it in properly.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure when the water got in, and so that's why I didn't try to do a warranty claim or anything. It could have been a car wash I took it through, could have been lots of different things I didn't know. But after calling the manufacturer of the control unit, they were like, yeah, you need a new unit. Luckily, the campground was really nice, let us get it delivered, and luckily we were there just long enough to be able to get it wired in, and that fixed it.
Well, kinda. Remember, we left Cody and we were on the road. We're driving, and we were still in Wyoming. We were almost to Montana, and this couple, drives up next to us. They're all frantic, and they're like honking their horn and waving at us.
First time that's happened to me, and so I pull over. We were in a construction area, and the road felt rough, but it didn't really faze me too much. And lo and behold, the stabilizers had come down on the road by themselves.
And they were sparking. It was like dragging, and it was like a comic book sparks on the road.
Yep. So we got out. I was able to magically get them back up. Actually, after I found the reason, I'm surprised that I was able to do that.
You did get road tar all over your shoes, though.
Oh, yeah.
Those shoes were cooked.
I tracked road, again, we were in a construction zone. There was tar all over the place. It was not a good time. But we eventually got to Spokane. That's where that's right. That's where I was able to fix that. Yeah, we're looking for what actually happened to our levelers, because we replaced the controller because that went bad because it got wet, and then our legs just dropped in Wyoming. We're not exactly sure why they dropped. Trying to see if there's a fusible link or something with our batteries. There's a whole bunch of this crappy wire. It's kind of coiled up here, and there's your problem, lady. Well, we'll probably complete that. Yeah, so it looks like it drug on the ground, shorted, caused the legs to go down, and now I get to do a wire repair. So yeah, fun times with levelers. It took me probably about an hour of diagnostic to just trace through like what could make this go down to the new. Because I had just put in that control board, so maybe that had gone bad, maybe I miswired something, I didn't know. And so I started tracing the wiring, and I pulled it up, and a zip tie or something had broken, and the wiring had just drooped down to the pavement, and it had been scraping along the pavement after we had left Cody. Probably after I had put the new board in, that maybe that disturbed something, or maybe it was never zip tied up. I don't know. But it had dragged along, and it had sparked against itself enough to lower the stabilizers. Again, luckily, I have learned a lot of these things in my life, and I was able to splice everything back together, securely zip tie it, so it's not going to go anywhere. But yeah, that was one of the scarier.
My hero. We drove from Spokane all the way to Central Washington. We were staying in a little place called Silver Lake near Mount St. Helens, which is quite a long drive. And this was before we learned how to properly store our soda while we're driving. So long story short, we used to put our soda in the overcab bunk in the Class C. That was when we learned that if it falls down and it goes on the floor, it kind of becomes like a water balloon with shrapnel. Yep. So we were kind of going through Snoqualmie Pass. We had an Arrett soda, and the can of soda kind of got in the slide area, which is, that's a no-no.
Just got behind the slide, and we didn't notice, and I put the slide out.
And
soda exploded like a water balloon.
We were in Central Washington. We needed to get an oil change for Calcifer. We hadn't gotten an oil change on our RV before we'd set out, and it was due for one. Yep. So we were putting in the slides one day to go and to drive into town, pack up for the morning and get our oil change, when the slide wouldn't go in.
It would go about halfway in and then act like it was done, and it was not. So this is something that I actually didn't know a lot about. I did not know a lot about. We have a Swintech, and I'm sure a lot of people in the comments will probably say some things about that. But it's a perfectly serviceable slide system, I would say, as long as you treat it correctly, which we had not.
We had not treated it correctly.
So there was a couple of things that I learned. One, learn how to bypass the system, so I was able to bypass it and get it in past a rough spot it had developed. Two, learn how to sync your slides, because that was actually the problem when the soda exploded. It had desynced both sides, and it, unbeknownst to me, it was just ever so slightly askew. And number three, check your slide rails, because, and this was a manufacturer defect, one of the screws was not in all the way. Yep. And that it was out just enough so that when it desynced, it rubbed against, I think, the motor and was able to stop as it was coming in. So that was probably a very terrifying 20 minutes as we figured out how to get the slide in. And then I think we weren't able to permanently fix it until I did some research over the course of about 2 weeks, trying to figure out how to get this thing to come in properly.
Yeah, but we managed to get to our appointment and get our oil changed. We weren't even late, which was the funniest part because he's so quick. It was pretty terrifying for a while when we didn't know the slide was gonna come in or not. When we were trying to move, we were like, oh no, every single time.
Every time I hear the motor just bog down a little bit, I have to hold my breath.
Yeah, every time. Even now, like we still have scars from it. The next one also happened in Mount St. Helens, but it was a more minor thing, I want to say.
It's part of going down the road. Luckily, this rig has a slightly better ride system, so it's not shaking as bad as, say, a fifth wheel or something like that. Some things kind of take a hit, and in this case, it was the fittings underneath our sink. A lot of the PEX fittings and stuff are not supported. At least it is not in our particular rig, and luckily, after the bed incident, having the leak underneath the bed, I had bought some water sensors. And so we were just sitting here one day and one of them starts going off for no particular reason. I'm like, what is that noise?
We shut off the water, and then we just went into like Home Depot.
Something that I would always suggest, especially when it comes to plumbing in an RV, make it better. We upgraded to brass fittings. I reinforced them. I also put mounts up there so that so the PEX is better supported, because the PEX is going to shake around a lot when you're traveling, and having some sort of buffer, or in this case it was a rubber isolation block that I put them in. So it can shake a little bit, but it's not going to shake it apart. So our next one was in Redding, California. I went to start the rig a couple of times, and I had to use the emergency thing that links it to the house batteries to start it. And that was getting really annoying, and then one day it just wouldn't even start properly. The battery was completely dead. It had been just drained too far down too quickly, too often.
Our truck battery, correct? Not the house battery.
Correct, the truck battery. The house batteries, the deep cycle batteries were fine, but the motor battery, the thing that starts the engine when we want to go somewhere, was completely dead. One interesting thing especially is cars get more and more technology and more gadgets and gizmos, is that you'll always have some sort of draw. And that's what had happened, is these are meant to be driven every so often. I didn't have a battery cut off or anything on it, and it had just drawn down, probably because of, I think it has like a cell signal that sends stuff up so I can get information about the truck, how, if it needs an oil change, etc. And that probably just killed it.
Because you're only moving every couple of weeks at that point. Yep. Slow down a little bit because we were working.
Yep. So what's really interesting about these systems is there's a little button so you can kind of jump your truck from your house batteries, but they make things so that you can actually hook when you're hooked up and everything's charging, that it will actually trickle charge your engine battery as well. So I ordered one of those and was luckily able to get that hooked up, and we haven't had trouble since. Of course, brand new battery, had to order that thing, was a couple $100 in parts, but now we don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
So one of the fun things about RVs are those, at least these ones, is the dinky little fans that they put into the vents, and everybody knows they don't actually move any air.
No.
I mean, not really. But we had so much other stuff going on, I had never replaced them. I was interested in upgrading them at some point, and then one day it decided to do it for me. So
the bathroom one ended up going first, because we usually run it for showers and stuff, so it gets more of a workout.
Yep, and so it just completely froze up, and obviously I had a choice at that point. I was interested in the more expensive Max Air fans. We might eventually do that, but it was also my birthday when it broke.
And it was going to be like an all-day job, potentially, depending. Yeah. So we didn't want to spend his birthday on a fan upgrade. Sorry, everybody.
So we went with the Vortec, which allows you to just do it from inside. You can just kind of push up the new fan from inside. Didn't have to go up on the roof and redo all the caulking and everything up there. I didn't really feel like it that day.
Yeah. And it's a lot better than the fan that the rig came with.
Yes, actually. So we replaced both fans at the same time. We have two of them, one in the kitchen, one in the bathroom. It was just it's a slight upgrade. Like I said, it was something that broke. It was something we wanted to upgrade, and hopefully it'll last at least a little bit longer than the typical little dinky fan. So we've had a lot of things break in our RV. A lot. We'll put down in the description a few of the things that we used to fix all of these issues, upgrades including the Vortec fan, etc. I'm sure I'll do some more videos on some of the other upgrades done to the RV as well. But what kind of things have you seen break? I'm actually really interested to see what other people have had done.
Yeah, and other upgrades you've done along the way.
So otherwise, we'll see you next week.